it. Hamas has intentionally placed civilians in the way. We all know that as well. There is no genocide. I would love to hear any panelists call for Egypt to open up the border and let all the Gazans in, but no Arab country, no Muslim country wants any of the Palestinians. There never was a Palestinian state, and if there was, tell me who the prime minister was. This is just an endless assault on Israel. There's not going to be peace in any real way. There's no such thing as the two-state solution. There never were two states. Palestine used to be the place that the Jews lived. A lot of Jews just celebrated Hanukkah. You know where Hanukkah took place? The Judean hills, which we now unfortunately call the West Bank, but that's because the Jews lived there. So this is largely, we can get into the, okay, they're going to, give away 30 hostages, or they're going to get one hostage back for 30 Palestinians who have blood on their hands or anything else. That tells you right there who actually values life here. So look, it'll be nice to get back some people, and hopefully Americans. As an American, I do hope that the 5 or 6 Americans who have been held will return. But I'm not bullish on peace or anything else at the moment.
Julie, what do you feel about this? I mean, it's obviously an extraordinarily complex situation. I don't think there'll be any clean way out of this for many years. But do you feel that this deal, which they're talking about, is at least a step in the right direction?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it's too complex to lend itself to short sound bites. It's a deal, right? And it's a deal. I'm happy for the families who are whose loved ones are being released. But I think Dave did touch on something. I don't agree with a lot of what he said, but he did touch on something, which is I don't know what the end solution to this is. Because you had Ariel Sharon give Gaza, effectively give the land that Gaza is, the Gazan land right now, to the Palestinians. And in an election, they elected Hamas after a short period of time. And so what do you do if you're Israeli when you have that kind of threat on your border? It's not to excuse what the Israelis are doing in the West Bank right now. It's absolutely atrocious, and I say that as somebody who has a lot of family in Israel, and I don't support it. I'm fully for the two-state solution, but it has to be 2 states where one of those states is not run by a terrorist organization like Hamas.
No, it doesn't have to be a two-state solution, though. There's no reason for anyone to think there should be a two-state solution. They can go to Jordan, they can go to Egypt. Gaza was part of Egypt, remember? West Bank was part of Jordan. Judea and Samaria was part of Jordan.
Why would they have to go to Jordan and Egypt when they've been living on this land for generations? I mean, the reality is,
well, if they're being
us,
genocided and all of the other things that the other panelists said right there, they might want to look into that. You might want to, if any of that is true.
Or how
There's one place in the Middle East where Jews and Christians and Muslims live peacefully. It's Israel, ironically.
Piers, I have a solution.
But listen, have you been to Israel recently? Let me just say this. Let's be very clear, okay? Okay, so let's be very clear. There are places in Israel where they live peacefully, and there are places in Israel where settlers are not allowing Muslims to live peacefully. So let's not put this all on just the Muslim population.
Where are the Muslims allowing the Jews to live peacefully? Where are the Muslims allowing the Jews to live peacefully? I walked around in Jerusalem where you can walk around with Orthodox Jews walking next to women in burqas. Where are the Muslims allowing the Jews or the Christians to live peacefully? Ask the Coptic Christians of Egypt.
Listen.
How many Jews are left in Morocco? Any Jews in Jordan these days? We could go through all the countries.
I'm not disagreeing with you on how the Muslim countries have treated Jews. You're absolutely right. I will answer your question.
You're right. There's 2 million Muslims in Israel. They live with equal rights.
So you're not. So you're not allowing me to answer the question.
May I, as a resident Muslim,
let me just answer this question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Wajah has a solution. Go on.
No, go ahead. But you wanted to finish your point. Please go ahead.
Julie.
Well, my only point that I want to finish is, look, there's no question that in the West Bank, which I would hope would one day lead to an independent, safe Palestinian state that wants to live in peace with its Israeli neighbors, that there are settlers there who are not necessarily allowing Muslims to live in peace at the moment. Okay, I'm not suggesting that Gaza's a whole different story, but you can't put this just on the Palestinians. There are elements within Israeli society that are also prone to violence. And you can't say that there aren't. It's not a black or white issue. It's a deeply complex issue.
About a half dozen times over 20, 30 plus years.
You're absolutely right.
The Palestinians have rejected every single peace deal.
You're absolutely right.
Here I go.
You're absolutely right, and nobody has screwed the Palestinians more than their leadership. You're absolutely right on that.
I think we can probably all agree with that.
No Israeli government has actually ever tried. Israeli governments, whether they're Labor or Likud, have never tried ending the occupation in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and in Gaza. What they haven't done is end the settlements. The settlements have actually expanded.
The British mandate expired, and then all the Arab countries tried to destroy Israel. They lost the war.
There's 2.5 million Palestinians who live under military law. There's about 750,000 Israelis who live under Israeli law. An unequal system. You've been there, Piers. I've been there. It's horrifying. This is why Desmond Tutu and Jimmy Carter, rest in peace, called it what? Apartheid. Their words, not mine. I've been there. I've seen it. We are complicit in it. Hamas is not in control. There's no excuse. We have Ben Gvir, the national security minister, a man who Israeli reporters told me is like, imagine if the KKK was elected as a national security minister. That's the national security minister under Netanyahu. Netanyahu has openly said, I want river to the sea. He laughed and mocked and said, aha, I have blocked the peace deal. I have blocked two-state solutions. When President Biden said end settlements, he added 3,000 more settlements. When President Biden said don't bomb Rafah, he bombed Rafah. Why should Jews not be allowed to live in Judea? When President Biden said don't kill civilians, he bombed the World Trade Center kitchen staff. Remember that? It is a chaos to the point where everyone in the world, except in U.S. and except in Israel, they see Israel as becoming a pariah, increasingly an extremist Jewish supremacist state. If it was up to David, river to the sea, let Israel do what it wants and continue the occupation. Dave said Palestinians don't exist. There's no such thing as Palestinians. So David, today, you have gone on the side against justice and on the side of Pete Hegseth. But since you're so good on TV, wait, let me finish. I let you say your hateful stuff. Let me finish. Since you're so good on TV, based on your own logic, you should replace Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel.
All right.
You're great on TV.
All right, let me switch to something else. So you mentioned President Biden. He's come out with his farewell letter, Dave, President Biden. I've read some deluded claptrap in my time, but Biden's self-appraisal of basically how he saved America and the world is pretty priceless. And I watched his stuff he said on television the other night as well. The guy seems to be tripping towards retirement in an utterly deluded manner about his presidency, doesn't he? Dave, that's for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear who the question was for. Well, look, this is the obvious end to an utterly embarrassing, pandering, and I would say, frankly, almost illegal presidency. The man has been cognitively impaired. We all knew it, or most of us knew it. I was doing videos on this back in 2019. The idea that he's been in charge of this administration is a complete sham. He can't speak off the cuff, obviously. He can barely read off the prompter. We're just watching the end of something that, look, they cooed him over the summer, right? He wanted to run. We know Jill wanted him to run. Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and whatever party leaders, they threatened him with the 25th Amendment. This entire thing has been one sham after the other. And I think, after we have 5 more days of this, we're going to probably see Joe Biden about 3 more times. And then there will suddenly be a letter released, and it will say that he has been dealing with these cognitive issues. They knew it. Blah, blah, blah. And then it will leak out. Over the course of the next year, there will be plenty more to leak out, but he has not been in charge. It is a miracle we got through these 4 years, and we're going to have to deal with a lot of the fallout that he put in. But I'm very bullish, obviously, on Trump and this administration and the people he's bringing in, including Pete Hegseth. And I think we're going to see a lot of positive change very quickly, and it couldn't come too soon.
Yeah, I mean, Julie, I've heard Democrats trying to defend Joe Biden. They're sort of running out of energy for it. I think everyone kind of knows now that this is an old guy, probably suffering from a form of dementia, who's just stammering and stuttering and falling his way through to the end of what has turned out to be a pretty poor presidency, isn't it?
Have you listened to Donald Trump? I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm kind of in shock. Have you listened to what comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, who, by the way, is an insurrectionist?
Well, this is Donald Trump, and all I see is a guy. It's interesting you mentioned Trump. So I see a guy in Trump who's 2 years younger than Biden, but looks about 20 years younger than Biden, and still has.
Well, I'm sure if he
does.
Yeah, Biden makes the mistake of not getting airbrushed every day. But look, here's the bottom line: Joe Biden is leaving Donald Trump a very strong economy. Donald Trump promised to bring down, and I quote, the price of bacon, the price of eggs, and the price of apples. I can't wait to watch those promises. And on January 20th, that clock starts. Those are commitments that he made, and he's going to have to live up to them. He's going to have to live up to the fact that he's going to explode the American economy even more than it's gangbusters right now. And you have to admit, the American economy is doing better than any other Western country at the moment.
Okay.
He's going to have to come through on his promises
to
deport people. Wait a second. Deport people.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait. Stop. Mass deportation. Yep. Tariffs on everybody. And keep the economy going and bring down the price of goods.
Yep.
I can't wait to see him pull that rat. Listen, I'll be the first to say when he does that, I'll be the first to compliment him. But right now, I'm going to sit back and watch him try to do that.
Okay, good. I look forward to it. You're right, it's on Trump. Turning now to the LA wildfires, the bill for rebuilding Los Angeles is now estimated to be $250 billion, even as the city braces for yet more devastation today. House Speaker Mike Johnson suggested that federal aid for California may be conditional on big changes from local government. Well, that hasn't gone down well with some, including Whoopi Goldberg, who says it's unfair to hold anyone accountable for an historic natural disaster.
Having lived in California, having lost every house save for one that we ever lived in, I take great offense at pointing fingers. You should be pointing fingers about how can we help? Yeah. It's too soon to be saying, oh, it's Gavin's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's like us taking seriously that there are, magic lasers in the sky that direct the weather. That doesn't work. It doesn't happen. This is a catastrophe, and this is what's happened. And let's try to figure out how to work towards not having it happen again. But, we don't control Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't give a damn what we want.
Well, we've got Michael back. Michael, welcome back. Sorry we lost you temporarily there. So start with you, given you've rejoined us. I just couldn't disagree with her more. And also, I have a fundamental belief that if it was a Republican-controlled setup in California, she'd be saying the complete opposite. The View regularly rants about Republican failures of accountability. And the truth is, I have a home in LA, which thankfully is still standing, and I hope it continues to do so. But I know so many people who've lost their homes who are incandescent with rage about what they perceive to be persistent failures right across the board of the mayor, Karen Bass, who fled the country, having said she'd never leave the country. She went to Ghana for an inauguration as these winds were coming in, as fires were breaking out. Unbelievable dereliction of duty. You've got the Justin Trudeau of the operation in Gavin Newsom, who I think deserves a lot of heat, literally, for what is going on here and a lot of accountability. So this idea that they all should be blameless because, nature, I think is for the birds, isn't it?
Of course. And Whoopi's argument here that this was unpredictable and inevitable would be more persuasive if you hadn't had many people, up to and including President Trump, personally warning Gavin Newsom that this would happen in 2018, 2019. Just at the end of last year in 2024. It was not inevitable and an act of nature that 95% of Delta rainwater was sent into the Pacific Ocean rather than filling reservoirs. It wasn't an act of nature that the Pacific Palisades Reservoir was empty, was turned off before the predictable, perennial Santa Ana winds. It was not unpredictable that you'd have 100-mile-an-hour winds. That happens regularly in LA. It was not nature and inevitable that LA wouldn't have cleared its brush. These were basic political problems. Even people who were not expert in it could have seen this coming a mile away and did. And so the residents of LA, I'm a former Angelino myself, they deserve some answers. And the politicians, Newsom and Karen Bass in particular, need to be held accountable.
Of course, Karen Bass has turned out to be utterly useless. From her silence when she finally flew back from this jolly to Ghana, which she had no need to be at, and she knew these winds were coming in. She then says nothing to Sky News in the most paralyzing, embarrassing scene I've ever witnessed of a mayor coming back to a disaster. And every public utterance since has been, frankly, just utterly pointless and nonsensical and contributes nothing to anyone. The idea that she should continue to be considered blameless because of nature, when you've got the person she beat, Rick Caruso, who I think lost because he's a rich white billionaire, but actually specializes in property and development. It comes down to this for me. Who do I trust more to rebuild LA? Is it Karen Bass or is it Rick Caruso? And if it's obviously Rick Caruso, then why is she still mayor? Why isn't she being held accountable right now? Why aren't they kicking her out and getting someone in who understands reconstruction, for example.
Who are you planning on having her kick out? I mean, listen, there's going to be an election or there's going to be some sort of recall.
Yes.
And if that's the case, then she'll be recalled.
Yeah.
If people agree or don't agree. But I mean, I think right now people are a little too concerned about saving their lives and saving their houses to worry about recalling Karen Bass at the moment.
I don't agree.
I will say to you that...
Yeah, but Julie, I don't agree with that. I mean, I had Dennis Quaid on yesterday. He knows 100 people who've lost their homes. He wants her recalled immediately. He thinks she literally disappeared.
Fine, then he should get the signatures, circulate the petitions to get a recall. That's not a problem. I mean, listen, the beauty of living in this country is there are mechanisms with which to do that if you so choose.
Yeah.
I would say to you, however, the larger issue here is that California is not the only state that deals with natural disasters, and Republicans will not be in charge forever. What goes around comes around, and I would be very, very wary of throwing out these kinds of contingencies, because one day Donald Trump will not be president. One day Mike Johnson will not be speaker. One day there will be Democrats sitting in both those offices. And one day Louisiana, Mike Johnson's home state, or Florida, Donald Trump's home state, probably sooner rather than later, is going to have a horrible natural disaster. And on that
it's
day,
already happening.
when that happens,
but we have them, and we have competent governance.
Of course,
have you met Ron DeSantis?
Plenty of Democrats. This happens all the time. Listen, I'm from New York, and I recall very clearly when Ted Cruz would not vote for Hurricane Sandy relief, and then a few years later, all of a sudden, this horrible situation in Texas happened, and he came crawling hat in hand to New York senators and to New York members of Congress, begging them for money for Texas. So if you want to go down this road, feel free. If you want to take advantage of people's natural disasters, feel free. But the reality is, when that
Piers,
happens to you, expect that what goes around comes around.
All right, Wajahat.
Yeah, real quick. California is my home state. It is the 5th largest economy in the world, the most populous state in the country, 40 million people. Currently suffering from one of the most devastating fires. Over 100,000 people have been displaced. You know what's free? Compassion. You know what's free? Decency. You know what's free? Empathy. The United States of America can afford that. The president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, at the very least, he can do that. Don't be cruel. Don't promote misinformation. Don't promote an AI-generated image of Los Angeles on fire and replacing Hollywood with Trump was right. You know what you also agree on is climate change, which is here, which will exist after Republicans and Democrats. And if I take the logic of Michael and Dave and cruel MAGA folks, then Ted Cruz should not have gone to Cancun while his state was freezing. These dumbass Republicans in Texas, this is for everyone watching around the world.
He shouldn't have done.
For the sake of politics, not for the sake of money, not for the sake of national security, they are off the national grid. They have their own grid. So if they want to actually resign, if you want leaders to resign, Texas Republicans should resign for literally helping their own constituents.
Commendable whataboutery.
Climate change.
Commendable whataboutery.
Climate change.
Climate change actually bears very little contribution to this.
No, a study came out just today. Climate change could be blamed for...
I have studied it probably more than you've studied it, I can guarantee you. And actually, the reality is...
Just today, UCLA scientists came out and said that climate change could be blamed for...
Also, historically, Los Angeles...
25% of the fuel available for the fires, but the fires would have happened regardless, but climate change made it worse. Just like the Category 5 hurricane in Florida.
The truth, I'll come to Dave. I mean, the truth, Dave, about California and LA in particular is that for 100 years or so, it's had very hot winters, very wet winters. This cyclical thing builds up again. Santa Ana's come and go. There's nothing particularly different about this other than freakishly, they had 2 very wet winters, followed by a very, very dry one this time, which meant there was a lot more vegetation out there to then get very, very dry. And that has meant the whole thing has become a bit of a tinderbox, which, by the way, should have been spotted and dealt with in a much better way, in my opinion, by the politicians, and it wasn't. So,
of course, and Michael made the point that Donald Trump warned Gavin Newsom about this years ago. There is plenty of video of them standing in a forest talking about it. I would also mention that the personal insults of the other panelists aside for a moment, if you actually believe in climate change, if you believe in climate change, it's the Democrats that have been president for the last 4 years. It's the Democrats that have the governorship of California. It's the Democrats that have the mayorship of Los Angeles. It's the Democrats that have a super majority in the legislature in California. So if you believe in climate change, I do not, but if you do, what did Gavin Newsom do to prevent this? He did absolutely nothing. And it's not only that he did nothing, but then he gets up there and he lies to everyone and takes no culpability. I'm sure you all saw the video of that woman coming up to him saying, we need help, we need help. And he says, I'm on the phone with the president of the United States right now, literally. He says literally. And then a moment later, he says, oh, I have no cell service. The man's inclination is to lie about everything.
Funny enough,
this is the same
he should have gone to Cancun like Ted Cruz.
I don't interrupt, chaps, but Dave, you've teed this up perfectly because you're a professional, even though you didn't know about this. I'm going to let you guys go because I know, Julie, you've got a hard out, but also because I actually do have the LA resident, Rachel Darvish, waiting, who was the woman involved in that interaction with Gavin Newsom. So those who didn't see it, let's take a look at the original. Take a look at the original incident. Question is, has the governor lived up to his word? But joining me now is Rachel herself. Rachel, great to have you on Uncensored. I watched that with mounting anger, actually, on your behalf, because you were just getting so obviously fobbed off by Gavin Newsom, and your anger was palpable and entirely justified. How do you feel now that everyone's seen this video? How do you feel about it?
I'm an American, Piers. Thanks for having me on. Am I allowed to use the word that starts with W on your show?
Absolutely.
He's a wanker. That's all I can say. It was insanity. It was pure insanity. It's still insanity. I was standing in front of my daughter's preschool, for God's sake, Methodist preschool, looking at the rubble of her school, looking at the rubble of school where all those kids, I was up on a mountain coming down the hill when the fire started. I was one of the first people to know about this fire. I got to tell you, we were the second home in at the top of the hill. It took me 5 hours to get down the hill. Not a single fire truck, not a single bit of assistance, no warning, no nothing. And then to come down the hill, ask somebody else to watch my daughter, and then know that that person's house burned down. And in a matter of moments, to see that I'm standing in front of the man who's been in charge of my state since 2011 in some way, shape, and form. Well, there's so much that goes on inside of you, and I just had to ask him. And then to be lied to so bald-faced, I'm looking at his phone. He actually offered his phone to me, Piers.
And was he on the phone to President Biden, do you think, or did he make that up?
Was he on the phone with President Biden? The cameras were running, obviously. I caught him from the time I was in my vehicle with the Sky TV, and I rushed over to him. I didn't do anything to change his particular circumstances. He was not on the phone with the president. The very first call on his call log was to a woman. It was his wife.
So what does that tell you about Gavin Newsom?
The same thing that everyone's known for years. Look, if you study history, you just don't want to see history repeat itself. 2011, we've had Gavin Newsom in charge of our state. We've had 2011 to 2025 for this guy to be ready for us. And when the time came, boy, was he not ready. Man, Piers, the water ran out at 3:30 in the morning. I mean, that's unbelievable. Where did our money go? Where did all our property taxes go? Where did 250 million in your coffers? You couldn't send a fire truck up there? You couldn't keep the hydrants full? Man, come on. The thing is, I sat here listening to your panel, and it actually is exactly what inspired me. I'm listening to each one of those people that spoke, and let me tell you, I heard something great from each one of them. I really did. But I can tell you who's the Democrat, and I can tell you who's the Republican. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we took each and every one of what they said that was so good and so right, and we took that and put someone like that in office?
Yeah.
Someone who didn't care. Whoopi Goldberg. What are you talking about, Whoopi? We shouldn't be pointing fingers. How are we going to fix this? Those two people are so irrelevant to the solution here that let's just point those two fingers right at them and say bye-bye.
Do you think that Mayor Bash should be recalled?
There's no thinking involved in that. Piers. I believe they've already started the petition. The problem is that they should not even be here in the first place, but I can't fix that. So California has a lot to deal with at the moment. And I hope that while we are in the midst of trying to find a place to live, while we're in the midst of trying to get clean water, while we're getting ourselves out of this war zone that we're in, that we have something going on up here, that we don't let this happen again.
And Rachel, what is your personal situation at the moment?
I'm going to be homeless for a little while. I'm going to be homeless. I'm fighting with the thousands of displaced people trying to find a place to live that will accommodate my elderly mother and my 3-year-old daughter.
Was anything left of your home?
I can tell you that yesterday and the day before and every day before that, I've gotten more and more information. Whether my home is standing or not almost doesn't make any difference. My home is standing, but I can't get there. I believe it's actually part of what could be a crime scene, Piers, as this continues. So, every single person in the Palisades is facing a completely different circumstance in front of them. Some people have a home, some people don't. You have a home, you got nothing to go home to. And then we face other battles, the insurance battle. We are facing the rains that are going to inevitably come. I live right behind a hill. I texted the governor's office this morning and last night asking him for assistance for the future. I asked him if he could have the foresight to know that what's next on the horizon are rains. And we're going to have mudslides, and we're going to be, whatever was theirs is going to be destroyed even further if these guys don't pay attention. I haven't heard back from them.
A lot of people feel that LA has always been pretty Democrat, but they feel that what's happened here on the Democrat watch will lead to a lot of people flipping and voting Republican in future. Do you get that sense as well?
I got to tell you, the first call I got from someone was a really good friend of mine, total lifelong Democrat. And I won't use the words she used. She's a doctor, very, very professional, but very professionally told me that she would not be voting for the Ds ever again. And I actually think that's a travesty. I think that's a shame, because I'm sure there are wonderful Democrats out there who don't fall into the category of a Gavin Newsom or an incompetent Karen Bass. So I'm sure that's the reality. Let's not make the Democrat or Republican thing the big issue. We just got some really SHIY people in charge right now.
Have you heard from Gavin Newsom since your exchange went viral?
No, I have not. I have texted and had a few exchanges with somebody in his office. I've gotten copy-paste responses. I asked on camera. I asked Governor Newsom if I could be there when he was meeting with the president. I want to be there when he meets with the president-elect because I don't trust this man. And look, I'm just a mom from Pacific Palisades. I just wanted to have an in with the man responsible for where my money goes. And where did my money go? It went to no fire hydrants, no reservoirs full. It went to the destruction of a town built by some really, really great people who never wanted to leave. Wait till the Olympics comes. What are we going to do? What are we going to do then? Wait till what's coming up? The World Cup, the Olympics. We have the Super Bowl coming to LA. We're in big trouble if we let Whoopi Goldberg or anyone else like that make decisions for us down the line. Karen Bass, Gavin Newsom, but how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we don't make these kind of decisions again? That, I think, is something we need to be talking about hardcore with the people of Los Angeles, so that we are not in this predicament again.
Yeah. Finally, Rachel, I mean, if he's watching this, and he might be, what's your message to Gavin Newsom?
The same it was the first time I saw you. I've never met you before, Governor. Please ask me for help. Please let me come there and help you. I told you, I said I would fill up the fire hydrants. You know, I hope you know that was my way of saying, I'd like to help. Please respond to me. How else can I get in touch with you? I have a direct line to your office and you still won't respond to me. Maybe the president-elect will take me up on my offer to have Palisadian mothers be present when their town is being rebuilt. But I am asking for some way to be part of this problem so that we can make a solution that my neighbors, my residents, the people I live with don't have to worry whether the fire department is going to come and save our lives when we pay their salaries.
Yeah. Rachel, you're a very powerful and eloquent advocate for change in LA, and I really do respect you. I respected you in the way you dealt with Gavin Newsom. I respect you more having interviewed you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thanks for your time, Piers. I appreciate your words.
I wish you and everyone there all the very best. I've got a house in LA and up in Beverly Hills. Thankfully, that hasn't so far been affected, but my heart goes out to all of you down there. My manager lost his home in the Palisades, so that brought it home to me, and it's just been utterly devastating. And I
sorry.
send my heart to all of you. I really do, and hope things